The sun on planet Varex was cruel. It burned down like fire from the sky. The alien market was filled with noise creatures shouting, trading, and laughing. In the middle of it all, next to the garbage piles, there was a cage. Inside that cage was an alien girl. Her name was Jira. She was thin, weak, and her skin had turned pale from hunger. One of her arms was missing. Her legs were twisted and damaged. Her eyes, once bright, now looked empty and tired. The traders had chained her inside the cage like a wild animal. She had not eaten properly in days. "Get your meat here," one alien trader shouted. "Fresh, unlike that broken thing over there." A group of young alien boys pointed at Jira and laughed. "She's not even worth a single credit. She's disgusting. Who would want a thing like that?" Jira lowered her head. She had heard it all before. Ever since the war ended and she lost her limbs in an explosion, no one wanted her. Not her clan, not her family. They said she was useless. They sold her to a market trader for food. She had cried for days. But now she didn't even have the strength to cry. Just then, heavy boots stepped near her cage. She heard the sound different from the others. The steps were strong, not careless like the traders. She lifted her head slowly and saw someone. Standing there, a human. He was tall, wearing dusty armor and a long coat. His face was tired but calm. He had sharp eyes and a scar on his left cheek. His name was Jackson, a former Earth soldier. He looked down at Jira, but he didn't laugh. He didn't speak. He just stared. Like he saw something no one else could. "Hey, human," the trader yelled. "You want something better? She's nothing. Worthless trash." "Just some broken alien slave." Jackson didn't answer. He kneeled. Down in front of the cage, Jira blinked. No one had come this close before, not to help anyway. She opened her dry mouth, trying to speak, but all that came out was a weak whisper. "Help." The human moved closer. "What's your name?" he asked, voice low. Jira shook her head. She didn't know if she should answer. Would he laugh too, hurt her? "Jira," she finally said. The trader laughed from behind. "She be dead in a day or two. If you want her, I'll give her to you for 5 credits. That's cheaper than garbage." Jackson looked at her again. Her bones were sharp under her skin. She had wounds that were old and untreated, but her eyes, they still had a little light. He stood up and threw a few coins at the trader. 5 credits? "Fine, she's mine now," Jackson said. "You serious?" "You're crazy." The trader laughed, catching the coins. Jackson ignored him. He opened the cage and carefully stepped inside. Jira flinched, but he didn't touch her roughly. Instead, he pulled a small water bottle from his bag and held it to her lips. Jira drank slowly. It felt like the first drop of life she had. Tasted in forever. He lifted her in his arms, gently, like she was something precious, not broken. Her body was light as air. "Bones. Just bones and pain." The market went silent for a moment. Aliens whispered. "A human took her? He's crazy. What's he going to do with her?" Jira's head rested against Jackson's chest. She felt the warmth of his body. She was still scared, but it felt safe. As he walked through the crowd, someone threw a rock. "Don't touch our trash, human," one voice shouted. Jackson didn't stop. He didn't even turn his head. Jira opened her eyes slowly and whispered again. Why did you take me?" Jackson looked down and said softly, "Because no one else did." Tears filled her eyes, not from pain, not from fear, but from something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Her hand, weak and shaking, reached up and grabbed a part of his coat. She didn't want to let go. And Jackson? He didn't pull away. He held her tighter. They didn't know what the future would bring, but in that moment, a broken alien and a tired human walked away from a cruel world together. Jira had never been held before. Not like this. She had been grabbed, pushed, kicked, but never carried like she was something important. Something worth saving. Wrapped in a blanket, resting in Jackson's arms, her body shook from weakness. But her heart, it was shaking from something else. Something she didn't recognize at first thought. It was care. Real quiet care. Jackson's ship was small, dusty, and old. But to Jira, it felt like a palace. The lights were dim, the seat cushions torn, and tools were scattered everywhere. Still, it was the first place in years where no one called her trash. Jackson laid her gently on a soft cot in the corner of the room. She tried to sit up but fell back, her legs too weak to move. "You don't need to move," Jackson said calmly. "Just rest." Jira blinked, confused. "You're not angry?" Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Why would I be? I'm broken," she whispered. "I can't walk. I have nothing. Why are you helping me?" Jackson sat beside her, pulling out a medical kit. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he cleaned the wounds on her arm. With quiet hands, every movement was slow, gentle. She waited for the sting, the slap, the curse words. They never came. "I was a soldier once," he finally said. "Lost friends, lost battles. But I never left anyone behind." Jira turned, her face away. "Everyone left me behind." "I'm not everyone," Jackson replied. The silence in the room grew warm. Jira felt it in her bones. No market noise. No laughter at her pain. Just the hum of the ship and the soft sound of her own breath. After treating her cuts, Jackson pulled out something that looked like a metal glove. He pressed a button, and it expanded into a small, glowing prosthetic arm, basic, but functional. He looked at her. "It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Want to try it?" Jira hesitated. Her heart raced. She had dreamed of having an arm again, not to fight, not to work, just to feel. "Hold." He helped attach it. It clicked gently onto her shoulder. The fingers moved slowly, like a sleeping hand waking up. Jira stared at it. She flexed the metal fingers one by one. A soft gasp left her lips. I can move again." Jackson smiled slightly. "We'll make it better over time. But for now, you're not helpless anymore." She looked at him, unsure whether to cry or smile. No one had ever done this for her. No one had even thought she deserved help. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. He looked her in the eye. "Because I see someone worth saving." Her breath caught. He stood up and turned away, giving her privacy. "You need rest. There's food if you're hungry." But Jira wasn't hungry for food. She was hungry for something else, something she didn't know how to name. She lay back, staring at the ceiling, the metal hand resting gently on her chest. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was falling apart. She felt like someone had picked up the pieces. Suddenly, she remembered a memory faint and faded. Long ago, when she was a child, her mother had wrapped her in a soft cloth and whispered, "You are loved, my little star." That memory had been buried under pain, but now inside this human ship it came back. Later, as she drifted into sleep, Jackson sat nearby, fixing one of his tools. He looked over at her and saw the metal hand twitch in her dreams. "She's stronger than she knows," he said softly to himself. Outside the ship, the stars blinked silently. And inside, something rare was being born. A bond between a human and a forgotten alien girl. The first thing Jira noticed was the smell, not of blood, not of rot, but something warm, soft, clean. She opened her eyes slowly. The light was low, yellow like early morning. She wasn't in a cage. She wasn't on the cold metal floor of the alien market. She was wrapped in a thick blanket. Her body was sore, but for the first time in years she didn't feel like dying. Her metal hand twitched. A soft sound came from it, click, click. It moved again, this time smoother. She stared at it like it was magic. Then she turned her head. Jackson was sleeping nearby, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. His chest moved slowly, rhythmically. His face looked less hard when he slept. He looked human. She whispered. He really stayed. No one ever stayed before. A few hours later, Jackson woke up to the sound of movement. Jira was trying to sit up, her weak legs trembling under the blanket. "Whoa," he said, jumping up. "Take it easy." "You're not ready yet." Jira looked down. "I want to try." Jackson smiled a little and knelt beside her. Then, "We'll try together." He brought over a walker frame custom made for her size. It had small stabilizers and padded grips. He gently placed her feet on the ground and helped her balance. "Okay," he said. "Just one step." Jira's legs shook like leaves in a storm. She took one deep breath and pushed. Stepped out. Her left leg moved an inch. Then the right. Jackson's hands hovered close, ready to catch her, but he didn't touch her unless needed. "You're doing great," he said. Jira gritted her teeth. Sweat formed on her forehead. Her body screamed to sit back down, but her heart whispered something else. "Don't stop, don't go back." After 3 small steps, she collapsed into the seat. Jackson handed her a water bottle. "That's more than enough for day 1. Jira drank, smiling weakly. "I walked," he nodded. "Yes, you did. And tomorrow we go farther." Later that evening, Jira sat by the small window, looking out at the stars. Her body still hurt, but something inside her was changing. "I used to love stars," she said, softly. Jackson looked up from his tools. "Yeah? My people believe stars hold memories. When someone is forgotten, their star fades." She looked down at her metal hand. "I thought my star was gone." Jackson got up and stood beside her. "I think it's still shining. Just waiting for someone to notice it again." Jira looked at him. His words were strange but gentle. "Honest." She asked, "Why did you fix me?" He shook his head. "I didn't fix you. You're fixing yourself. I just gave you the tools." She stared at him, confused. "Then why care at all?" Jackson sat beside her, thinking for a moment. Then he said, "Because the galaxy's full of people who only care about power. But I care about those who are left behind." He looked her in the eyes. "You were left behind. And that's not okay with me." That night, Jira had dreams, not nightmares. Not screams or cold cages, but dreams of walking, of laughing. Of being someone. The next day, training began again. Jackson set up simple exercises. Sit up, stand, take 2 steps, eat full meals. Breathe deeper. Some days were harder than others. Some days she cried, but Jackson never yelled. He never rushed her. And every day, Jira got stronger. One evening, while adjusting her new leg brace, she looked at him and said, "I was ready to die in that cage. I had no dreams left." Jackson looked up from the tool in his hand. "And?" Now Jira took a deep breath. "Now I want to live." A pause. Then Jackson said quietly, "Then let's build you a new life." The doors opened and silence followed. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind filled with respect, but the kind that came when people saw something they didn't like and couldn't stop staring at. Jira stepped into the outpost hallway, her new leg brace clicking softly, her metal arm gleaming in the lights. She stood close to Jackson, her eyes focused forward. Every step took effort, but she didn't stop. Around her, soldiers froze. They weren't used to seeing someone like her walking among them. A broken alien? Someone whispered, "She should be in the med bay, not here." "Is that Jackson's pet?" Jira's fingers tightened around her walking stick, but she said nothing. Jackson heard every word, but kept walking. Earlier that morning, Jackson had offered Jira something she never expected. "Come with me to the command center," he said while adjusting her new joint brace. "You've earned it." Jira had stared at him, shocked. "They won't like me there," he had shrugged. "I don't care what they like. But I'm not normal," Jackson smiled gently. "Good, normal is boring." Now inside the outpost's heart, Jira stood like a soldier beside her human protector. Her breathing was shaky, but her back was straight. A high-ranking officer named Colonel Briggs stepped forward. His voice was cold, his tone sharp. "Jackson," he said, "is this the alien you brought from the slave pit?" "Yes, sir." Jackson replied calmly. Briggs looked Jira up and down like she was a broken tool. "Why is she here?" "Because she has knowledge," Jackson said. "And because she has a right to be here," Briggs smirked. "She's crippled. She's not one of us." Jira stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady. "I don't need to be one of you. I just need a chance." The room fell quiet. Again, one officer laughed under his breath. Another rolled her eyes, but Jackson smiled. "That's Jira," he said. "And she just took more courage in one sentence than some of you have in your entire careers." Outside, as they walked back, Jira was quiet. Jackson noticed. "Ignore them." Jira whispered, "I'm used to being stared at, but not like that. That look. Like I don't belong anywhere." "You belong here," Jackson said without hesitation. "They're just too blind to see it." That night, Jira sat alone by the small campfire outside the base. She stared into the flames, thinking. Suddenly, footsteps approached. A young, human soldier barely older than a boy stood nearby, looking nervous. Jira looked up, wary. He cleared his throat. I saw you walk today," she blinked. "And?" He scratched his neck. "You were brave." Jira was surprised. "No." "Insult?" He shook his head. "Nah, my sister lost both legs in a shuttle crash. I know how hard it is." He offered her a protein bar and sat across the fire. "My name's Eli." Jira looked at the bar, then at him. Slowly she took it. Maybe not everyone hated her. Later, when Jackson returned, he found her smiling. "You made a friend?" he asked, surprised. She nodded. "Maybe. One human who didn't call me a burden." Jackson grinned. "Told you." "You're changing minds, Jira." She looked at her hand, then at the stars above. "I'm changing myself." It started with a strange hum, soft, low, almost like a whisper from the walls. Jira was alone in the tech storage room, waiting for Jackson. She was sitting near a broken alien device that had been lying untouched for years. The humans didn't know what it was. They thought it was junk. But Jira didn't. Her eyes narrowed as the strange hum grew stronger the closer she got. She reached out her metal hand, and the moment her fingers brushed the surface, the device came to life, glowing, buzzing, breathing. Lights turned blue, symbols lit up on its sides, and the old machine suddenly floated an inch off the ground. Jira gasped. Footsteps rushed in behind her. Jackson stood in the doorway, frozen. "Did you just activate that?" he asked, eyes wide. Jira nodded slowly. I didn't mean to. I just touched it." Jackson walked over, stunned. "That thing's been dead for decades." "We tried everything. How did you?" Jira was staring at her hand. "I don't know. I felt something, like it knew me." Back in Jackson's private room, Jira sat quietly while he ran a scan on the alien device. It was now floating beside them, gently spinning, lights blinking softly like it was alive again. He looked at her, serious. "You said you were part of the Royal Engineer caste?" Jira nodded. "Before the war. Before I was injured, my family trained in ancient technology. The kind most forget now." Jackson leaned forward. "You're not just a survivor, Jira. You're the key to tech we've never even understood." Jira lowered her eyes. "My people didn't care. They only saw what I lost, not what I still had." Jackson said firmly, "Well, I see it, and now so will others." The next day, word spread quickly that the broken alien girl had awakened. A device even the best human techs couldn't understand. Suddenly, everyone who used to mock her now watched her with curious eyes. Officers visited the lab. Engineers came to ask questions. They brought her strange alien machines half broken. Ancient, mysterious dot, and one by one, Jira touched them. And they woke up. Some played music from old worlds. Some showed maps of forgotten galaxies. One even opened a hologram of a lost planet's last message. Jira's quiet voice became important. Her hands, once seen as broken, were now the most valuable in the room, but not everyone was happy. Colonel Briggs watched from the shadows. His jaw tight, his thoughts dark. "If she has this power," he told one officer, "we own it." That night, Jira sat with Jackson near the fire again. She was quiet, her eyes fixed on the glowing stars above. "I don't like their eyes," she whispered. Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Whose?" "The ones who never saw me before. Now they look like they want something. Not me, just what I can do." Jackson sighed. "That's how power works. People get greedy." Jira looked at him. "Will you get greedy too?" He paused, then smiled softly. "No, because I didn't see your gift first. I saw you." Jira's throat tightened. "You really mean that?" Jackson nodded. "Always." But in the shadows of the base, plans were already being made. Briggs stood in front of a screen, whispering into the dark. "She's too useful now. We either control her, or we lose everything." A voice on the other side replied, "Then take her, quietly." Asterisk, it began with a locked door. Jira reached for the exit panel of Jackson's ship, and it didn't open. She blinked, confused. Tried again, still locked. Something was wrong. She turned slowly and saw it. A red light was blinking in the corner of the room. A security override. From the outside, someone had sealed her in. 2 levels above, Jackson stormed into the command center. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted. Colonel Briggs stood calmly, hands behind his back. "Protecting Earth's property." Jackson stepped forward. "She's not property," Briggs smirked. "She's not your pet either. She's a walking alien database. You had your fun, soldier, but now she belongs to the program." Jackson's fists clenched. "You lock her in like she's some kind of tool?" Briggs leaned closer. "If you don't stand down, you'll be charged with interfering in military operations." Jackson's voice dropped, cold, dead serious. "Then charge me." Inside the ship, Jira began to panic. The lights dimmed. Oxygen levels shifted slightly. It wasn't just a lockdown. They were trying to keep her weak. She reached for her communicator, but it crackled. "Jammed. They're going to take me again," she whispered. Just like before. Her hand shook, but then she remembered Jackson's voice. "If the world hates you, I'll fight the world." She looked up. No. She wouldn't wait to be taken. Not again. Minutes later, Jackson burst into the docking bay, his face burning with rage. But the moment he reached his ship, it was empty. The door had been cut open from the inside. Trail of sparks marked her escape. Jackson smiled a little. "That's my girl." Jira ran through the underground tunnels, heart racing, brace. Clicking with each step, her lungs burned, her legs wobbled. But she kept going. She wasn't the same helpless girl in a cage anymore. She had purpose. She had strength, and she had to get away. Through the tunnels, she found a broken shuttle half buried in dust, hidden behind supply crates. Jackson had shown it to her weeks ago. "Too busted to fly," he had said, but he didn't know what Jira could do now. Her fingers danced across the controls. Ancient alien systems flickered. The ship groaned. Power surging. Lights came on. She was fixing it, because she wasn't just escaping. She was fighting back. At that moment, alarms blared. Across the outpost, "Subject has escaped." Briggs shouted, "Lock all gates. If the human helps her, arrest him." But Jackson was already gone, racing toward the escape route he knew she'd take. He reached the edge of the canyon where the tunnel ended, and saw it. The shuttle rose slowly from behind the rocks, glowing with strange, ancient light. Jira was inside, Her eyes locked on his through the window. Jackson raised a hand. She opened the door. He jumped in, and they vanished into the sky. Later that night, far beyond the reach of the outpost, the shuttle landed quietly on an abandoned moon base. Jira powered down the systems, her body shaking from the stress. But her eyes were proud. Jackson sat beside her, breathing hard. Then he chuckled. "You stole a ship." Jira smiled faintly. "You taught me to stop waiting for someone else to save me." He looked at her, this once broken girl who now flew like a star pilot, and said softly, "No, you saved yourself, but in the darkness of space." Colonel Briggs watched satellite footage. His jaw clenched. "This isn't over," he said, and it wasn't, because Jira had finally become more than a survivor. She was a symbol, and symbols are dangerous. Jira stood on her own two legs for the first time in years. Not with a brace, not with help, but truly standing, the stars behind her. A wind blowing across the silent moon base. Her new legs, built from human alloy and ancient alien tech, glowed softly beneath her robes. They hummed with life as if they knew she was ready. Jackson watched from a few steps away, stunned. "You're not walking anymore," he whispered. "You're marching." He smiled. Jira looked ahead, eyes burning with quiet fire. "I'm done running." A distress signal crackled through the control console nearby. It was a coded message from the outpost sent by Eli, the young soldier who once gave her a protein bar. "They're coming for you. Briggs is bringing everything." Jira narrowed her eyes. "Then we won't wait for them." Jackson turned to her. "What are you thinking?" Jira looked down at her new body, no longer broken, no longer afraid. "I'm thinking it's time they learn what a useless alien can really do." They returned to the outpost, not in secret, but through the front gate. Jira stepped down from the ship like a queen. Soldiers stared. Some gasped. Some saluted. Some backed away, because she was no longer a forgotten girl in a cage. She was a walking storm. Colonel Briggs stood at the top of the command stairs, arms crossed. Well, he said. "The broken pet returns." Jira walked forward, no fear in her steps. "I'm not your pet," she said. "I'm the reason half your systems are still running." Briggs smirked. "You think your shiny legs make you a soldier?" Jira tilted her head. "No, but they make me fast enough to reach you before you pull that weapon." Briggs hesitated. Too slow. In the blink of an eye, Jira's mechanical hand shot out, grabbing the pistol from his belt and crushing it in her grip. The metal snapped like paper. Gasps echoed across the crowd. Jira dropped the pieces at his feet. "That's what useless looks like." Later that evening, in front of the entire outpost, Commander Miles, the highest-ranking official, called a gathering. He had watched everything. He saw the footage, heard the story, and he spoke clearly. Jira is no longer just a guest on this base. She is an ally, a builder, a warrior. He turned to her. "If you want to stay, Earth would be proud to have you." Jira looked at Jackson. He didn't speak. He just nodded. She stepped forward and bowed. "Then I fight with you. Not because I owe you, but because you believed in me before I believed in myself." Cheers rang out. Even the ones who once mocked her clapped this time. Jira didn't cry, but her heart, it flew like a star reborn. That night, as the fires burned and the stars lit the sky, she stood beside Jackson outside the outpost wall. "Everything is different now," she said quietly. He nodded. "You changed it." She turned to him. "Do you think I can have a real life now?" Jackson looked at her with warmth in his eyes. "You already do." The galaxy had tried to break her, silence her, throw her away. But one human helped her rise, and now the stars would never forget her name again.